You get a call. They're missing a finger. That's all I know. What's going on here?
This is great and frustrating at the same time. Here we are, fat, dumb, and happy, managing a bunch of houses, thinking we know what we're doing, which we do. And we get a call from an attorney that's suing us and the landlord because the lady who lives in the house cut her finger off in the automated driveway gate.
Welcome to Real Estate Hacking Live. How y'all doing? My name is Chris Bounds, your host for this evening. I'm going to announce our special guest tonight. We have Mr. Richard Drake. He's a former naval officer and CEO of Renters Warehouse Houston, which is the most successful renters warehouse franchise in the nation. He's also the owner of the oldest home investors franchise. He's flipped some 1,500 houses that may be older than half. But thanks for coming on the show, Richard.
Well, thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Is there anything that leave you hanging out?
Yeah, my story is long. I did the Navy thing, flew around the world, flying airplanes for the Navy for about 6 years, spent about 20 and 21 different countries, and ended up back in East Texas where I belong.
Nice. What'd you fly me?
It was a P-3 Orion and a submarine aircraft, so we kind of Russian submarines.
Nice. All right. And let's talk about some landlord horror stories.
How much time you got?
I knew if I was going to bring this topic up, I'm like, hey, it's October, Halloween. Also, you always hear there's landlord horror stories. Anytime you have real property, especially rental, anytime you have properties, but especially real properties, there's always horror stories. But we all know that owning real estate that's the pathway to building wealth and building passive income. There's some trade-offs to that. There are some risks, some horror stories.
For sure.
And what I want to have the conversation tonight is, let's talk about some of those horror stories. And then also the lessons that you've learned on how to avoid those, like, you bust your shin one time. You don't have to run to get a charity. Yeah. So I mentioned before, I was playing around with with ChatGPT earlier. Because I know you don't have pictures of some of these horror stories, and I don't, and so we want to protect the guilty. So I had ChatGPT come up with some funny images to go along with some of these situations. So let's get started. All right, first one. You get a tenant application in. It's filled out completely. They submit their IDs, their pay stubs, their bank statements, their references, everything that a average landlord they should request. They've requested. The tenant sends that to you. You accept them. They move in, but only after they miss their first month's rent payment, you find out that it was all fake. Everything that they told you was fake. Fake pay stubs, fake bank statements, fake IDs. What's your experience with this, and how do you prevent this stuff from happening?
With the economy getting tougher and tougher, this is happening more and more to us and all landlords, I would assume. Our background company said that in the lower income, 12, 13, 1,400 and below, it's high teens percentage of your applicants have some fraud in their application. That's a big number, right? So we write this down. Findigs, Findigs.com is our screening software that we use. And they go several extra miles to prevent things like this happening, because we learned the hard way that, an ID is super easy to fake, especially if it's a photo of an ID. So they have to do now, the technology that's out there now is leaps and bounds better with AI. They're using Photoshop and AI to create a fake ID. Well, we're using a 3D selfie. We're using software that says that watermark is off a little bit, right, on that ID. We're not asking for pay stubs usually. We're asking, does anybody use the technology called Plaid in the banking industry? It peeks into a bank account and it can see the transactions. It can't touch the money, but it can see it. So we use Plaid and we ask them to let us do that. And when they claim they make $5,000 a month, we're looking for $4,200 deposit every month for the last so many months. And then that passes the smell test. Does that make sense? So if they say they make $5,000 a month, but they only deposit $1,000 a month every month in their bank account, something's not right. Sometimes they don't trust Plaid or they don't use a bank account that much. So we do ask for pay stubs. A lot of these bigger screening companies, which you should be using, don't try to do it yourself, but they're building databases. So they go, this is not a DuPont pay stub. it doesn't look like this. This is not a Walmart pay stub. It doesn't look like this. This is the wrong style of pay stub for the company you claim it is. So you'll catch a lot of that kind of fraud by using a sophisticated screening company, and you don't want to try to do it yourself. Pets are another one. They come up with their assistance animals and their what do they call them? Guide dogs, the assistance animals.
Yeah, service and emotional support.
Emotional support. We turn down over 60% legally by using petscreening.com. Petscreening.com will, for free, vet that animal, reach out to the doctor, make sure that that doctor really knows that client, and make sure it's an approved animal. Things like that. They have blacklists in their systems that says this name and ID number has already been used in fraud in Pennsylvania. Out. So we've saved a lot of headaches by using a technology-driven, forward-thinking screening company, and that's the key to this whole thing. Don't try to do it yourself.
Interesting. So I have been doing it myself. Thankfully, I haven't got caught on the bad end of this, but because of property managers suggesting what you mentioned as a backup, so we haven't used Plaid. As a consumer, I've had to use it, but not as a landlord. But we have been taking the pay stubs and verifying that with bank statements and making sure that they match. Now that's not foolproof, definitely not foolproof. But then calling the institutions, actually doing what you're supposed to be doing, calling the references and verifying that information is accurate from a live human.
Same thing with bank statements. You'll look and you'll go, that font's just not quite right. And you may not catch it, but the screening software will catch it.
Yeah, I love that.
They know it's a different font or it's misaligned, right?
Love it. All right, next question. Similar, kind of a similar situation, or at least similar case. This time you have a vacant home. It's for lease, and you go to check it out. But you find some people living in it, and so you knock on the door, like, "Hey, what's going on?" And they tell you that they have a signed lease with the owner. They met him on Craigslist. And this owner signed a lease agreement with them, paid him a deposit, paid him the first month's rent. They just moved in. What do you do with that?
Yeah, that's tough. It's really tough.
That's never happened to you. Like, you've never heard of that happening before yet.
Oh yeah. It happens. There's some safeguards you can do as a landlord if you're renting a house. Is, for instance, if you open up the toilet seat, there's a paper across the seat that says, if you're not speaking to Renter's Warehouse, you're being scammed. If you open up the oven, if you're not speaking to Renter's Warehouse, you're being scammed. Because when they go to look at the house, there's ways for them to get a hold of the key, right? They get a lockbox code, or they get into the lockbox, they copy the key while they're there, and now they have a key, they put it back. There's no red alert to us, right? Also, you'll catch times where you'll find your home listed for a really low price, and that's what they're doing. So it's a $1,500 house. They put it up for $1,100 with a $1,000 deposit, and people jump thinking it's too good to be true, which it is. But how many people realize the public's not very bright? We got that right. So they get put in the house. They're innocent. However, unfortunately, not only did they get scammed, but our owner, my client, got scammed. And so we go to that tenant and say, look, I see what happened, and I'm really sorry that this happened to you, but you have to leave. And we have the right to evict them immediately. But the best thing to do is make it a win-win, right? Try to help that person. Maybe we can get them qualified, right? Maybe we can let them stay and fix the situation. But it's an unfortunate situation. The only way to really solve it is to stop it from happening in the first place.
And that's with notices in the property.
Notices in the property, watermarks on your photos. So if they rip your photos off your ad, they have watermarks on them, things like that. There's no way to avoid them going after somebody that's really, really unsophisticated and really needs a house, and they just jump at it. It's a very difficult situation.
Ring door cameras and
Now you got to have internet service, and almost all vacant houses don't. We use a smart lockbox through ShowMojo, our showing service, so we have to do an ID check, ID verification. ShowMojo catches fraudulent IDs all the time. So they have to do an ID check, and they get a lockbox code that's only good for a window. They go in, they look at the house, they can only open the door one time with that code. And then once they put the key back, it's done. And that knocks it down quite a bit.
Yeah. Then you get some agents, and I'm sure no one's ever experienced this other than me, but you get some agents that show a house and get to lock the back door.
Well, and there's also the teams. So you'll have a person that's completely legit. They're not on any of the records. They'll go in and look at the house, and they'll unlock the back window before they leave. And now their buddy can go in through the back window. Now they just rekey the house, and they're good. So there's no real stopping it. The key is to slow down. Most criminals are lazy, right? They'd rather have the easy mark. If you can make yourself a little more difficult, they'll go next door. They're going to keep doing it. You just got to stop them from being at your house. It's a tough situation.
What about this one? You get a call from the police saying that your tenant's dog just attacked the postal worker or the neighbor. Did that ever happen?
Your thing says, what do you do? And so, what did I do, you mean?
Yeah, what do you do? You get that call.
Man, you guys, so I got this house over at South Park. Who's got houses at South Park, right? And I got this tenant in there. She works, she's a maid, I think. You know, it's an $800 rent house back in the, early 2000s. I get a call from Jim Adler's office. Now, everybody knows the Texas Hammer. Well, it's not really Jim. Who knows who Jim Adler is? Who doesn't? So he doesn't practice law. He's a lead generation person.
Really good one.
He spends $25 million a year advertising, and he doesn't try cases. He farms them out and gets paid for the leads. So somebody called me and they said, I need your information for your liability insurance because this happened. And I just threw it out there to see what he would do. I said, I'm sorry, I don't have liability insurance on that house. Click. Never heard from him again. But sure enough, this mail carrier person found an attorney to take it on, contingency. So here we go. We're going to court. We're doing a deposition. We're doing a mediation. Good grief. Dog bit the mailman. Dogs are supposed to bite the mailman. So here's the best part. There's no dog on the lease. They have no permission to have a dog, and they didn't even sue the tenant. They didn't bother to sue the person that owned the dog. They sued the landlord.
They want a lottery ticket.
Ain't a whole lot you can do about it. I think I gave them $3,000. But I saved 20, winning to win.
Legal fees.
But I changed my MO. So I now have a way of dealing with these attorneys that come after us. Do I have time to talk about this?
Let's go for it.
So if an attorney calls me with a problem.
Any attorneys in the audience?
No? Well, I'm telling the truth, so it doesn't matter.
All right.
So if an attorney calls me about an issue, I tell them, I'm not mad. I understand you're doing a job. I need to do some research. Or maybe we got a letter, right? If I get a letter, I do the research, I get my data together, and then I call them. I make sure they understand there's 3 sides to every story. Is everybody familiar with the 3 sides of a story? Yes? My side, your side, and the truth, and the real story. So, and they always laugh and chuckle and go, I know, my clients are sometimes crazy. So I say, depending on the situation, usually it's not valid, right? I'll say, if I'm wrong, I'm the first person to get out my checkbook because fair is fair and right is right. But if I'm not wrong, I'll spend $100,000 to save $5,000. I said, I will never, ever settle. I will never, ever capitulate. I'm not mad. I understand you got to do your job. I am not mad at all. But right is right and wrong is wrong, and this is not right, and I'm never going to settle ever. And not one time have they followed through since I've done that. Don't know
That's your strategic deterrent in letting them know that
But I'm telling
you're not
you,
an easy letter.
I'm not lying either. I'm not going to settle. I'm just not going to do it because right is right. And if I don't settle, then the next one that calls, I can say, let me send you the record of the $120,000 I spent and I could have paid 10. And they never have since then. Because we got 700-800 tenants. How many times do you think I get a call from a lawyer? Once a quarter, probably. Something stupid. That you can't. I love Europe because when you go to Europe, if you do something stupid, they go, you did something stupid. Have a nice day. In America, they go, we need to protect you from your own stupidity or you can sue us. So I pretty much just stand up to them and tell them that's what I think.
Remember that Jeff Foxworthy bit? Like, here's your sign.
Here's your sign. Yep. Foxworthy is great.
All right. Your long-term tenants, they've been with you a while, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They miss a payment now. They paid on time. Hell now. They missed a payment. And they tell you that their job situation has changed. They're going to make a partial payment now. They're going to pay the rest in a couple weeks. What do you do?
That's a broad question for sure. There's a lot of variables, right? You got a guy that's never paid 1 second late for 5 years, and they say, I'm going to make a partial payment now and the rest is a couple of weeks. Our policy is as long as they're not greater than 30 days, we work with anybody. And that's our eviction rate is 0.4% because we don't, well, first of all, we don't put garbage tenants in the first place.
That helps.
But when they do have a problem, we work with them to the extent that we think there's a high likelihood they're going to be able to catch up. If you let them get 30, 60 days behind, almost no tenant will catch up, move forward, right? We just had one, I think I was telling you about earlier today. They've been in the house since 2017. They were evicted in September. They missed August rent. They didn't pay anything in August, and we got them out September 14th, which is 6 weeks from the time they were originally due, which is pretty great.
That's
right?
fast as you can.
Pretty fast. Our landlord was livid. I can't believe it. So we reiterated to them that over those past years, you've gotten $111,000 in rent, and the house is almost ready to go. Move on and let's get a new tenant. How do you anyway? So back to I get off on these old other stories, don't I?
Go for it.
And that's all right. But what I'll say is work with them as best you can. But if you see the writing on the wall, do what you have to do.
And that's what we've done. The part of me that has a heart, like, definitely want to work with them.
Yep.
Like you said, some of them I've regretted working with. And yeah, once it gets past that 30 days, there's no incentive. They're ahead of the game. It's just financially cheaper if they're really at a bad situation. Like, every dollar counts.
Yeah, we had one today or yesterday said, I lost my job. I have zero money and I'm giving you 60 days notice. I'll be able to pay you the 60 days, but I'm going to have to leave the lease early. That's all I could ask.
Yeah.
We're not mad at the guy. And here's what is interesting is with tenants, they'll sign a 1 year or 2 year lease. But when you're 6, 8, 10 years, there's just too many chances that life happens. So it's not that they're necessarily bad people. But the other thing is when my kids got cancer, I'm paying the doctor before I'm paying my rent.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes it is what it is.
Yeah.
You got to be professional. You got to be fair. You can't give this person an advantage over this person either. You treat everybody the same. You have policies. Just like with underwriting, fair housing applies with collections as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So be very fair.
And as a landlord, you've got stuff you got to take care of too. Tenant stops paying rent. Mortgage company doesn't really care about that.
Nope.
So at the end of the day, yeah, if you can, and they've been a good tenant, see if you can possibly work with them, especially if they're going to make a small payment, partial payment. Don't let them get past 30 days. We actually had a lady similar to your situation. She was only there, I think she was on our second year lease. And it was a single mom, and she lost her job. She'd never missed a payment, but she told us, like, straight up, hey, I'm making this payment. This is the last one I can make. And she had just signed, like, the second year lease, or maybe it was the third year lease. So we just let her know, hey, look, it's cool. Go ahead and find another place. And I'll tell you what, you leave the property, just clean it up. Then
No broken
no
lease.
harm, no foul,
Mhm.
no biggie. And yeah, she left that property. Like, the cleaners went by and they're just like, they called us, like, or no, it was our dispositions agent, our real estate agent. They're like, we don't even need to send the cleaners.
Yeah.
That's only happened one other time that I've actually had a vacancy and it'd be like move in ready day one. So we just threw it right back in the market. So
Another collection tool we use is, with the exception of safety, hey, my door won't lock. If you call me about a maintenance ticket and you're not current on your rent, call me back when you're ready to pay your rent and we'll send the maintenance guy out. It's in the lease.
100%. And air conditioning, I learned this. Air conditioning is not a vital necessity.
AC is not an emergency in
But
Texas.
heat is. In Texas, you have to have heat. No air conditioning. I don't get it, but they don't pay me to write the laws. All right, I'm gonna need your help on the backstory on this one.
All right.
You get a call. I don't know the backstory. They're missing a finger. That's all I know. I'll let you get as detailed as you want. What's going on here?
This is great and frustrating at the same time. So here we are, fat, dumb, and happy, managing a bunch of houses, thinking we know what we're doing, which we do. And we get a call from an attorney that's suing us and the landlord because the lady who lives in the house cut her finger off in the automated driveway gate. The gate that rolls open and closed, right? It's an uppity house down by Sienna Plantation on a few acres. So they got this door. So the attorney that we got hired by the landlord's insurance to defend us both. So we go in and we sit down across from the lady and her attorney. And so she basically says that I got home at 8 o'clock. Now, you guys have fixed this door before, and it's still messed up. I go, when? And they were like, well, when was that? She goes, well, like a year ago. So it's been fixed for a year, and suddenly we're not keeping it up. Anyway, she's sitting across the table, and she truly thinks that it's someone else's fault that she took a cover off that said, danger, do not remove this cover, in the dark at 8 o'clock at night in the dark, and stuck her hand in there trying to make the chain move. And so the attorney says, so after the gate opens, what typically happens a few seconds later? She goes, it closes. And he goes, huh? Because it opened partially, but didn't open all the way and stopped. So then when it closed, it went, and it was like half of a couple of fingers, which I feel for the lady, but as Ron White says, you can't fix stupid. So this lady cuts her own fingers off and blames us. That's my plug for liability insurance. Because had we not gone and maintained a gate, or had there been proof that there was a way that it could have really been our fault, that could be a big number, right? Truly big number. There's a lot of risk when you're dealing with people living in a house. You put a padlock on a burglar bar door, you have a problem. Or a burglar bar window, and they can't get out during a fire. Things like that can happen. So the frustrating part of the whole story is our attorney says, well, Texas is a it's a percentage of liability, right? Percentage fault state. So if it comes out that we were 80% at fault and you were 20% at fault, we only have to pay 80% of the claim. But if you were 51% at fault and we were 49, you get zero. That's what the law says in Texas. And she wanted $300,000. And we said, the guy's like, I'll give you 10. And I couldn't believe he offered her a dime, right? But he's instructed by the insurance company to settle. That's the way. He ended up giving her like 30 grand, which was frustrating to me because I say give her 0. And he's like, it costs 100, 125, but we'd win. And there's no guarantee you win. But there's a sign that says, don't take this off danger.
Yeah.
In the dark. I mean, what do? You park your car, you walk to your house, and you handle it in the daylight the next day with the maintenance guy. There's just no end of
So I think
people.
The lesson here is, one, should be a no-brainer. Good insurance and knowing what your insurance covers, especially liability.
Yeah, liability is $125 a year for a house. No brainer.
Good maintenance.
Good maintenance.
Responding to issues and documenting them.
Well, one thing we say at renterswarehouse.com, at Renters Warehouse, the tenant is the asset. And so I'm playing around, people are stupid, can't fix stupid, tenants this. But honestly, if they understand that they're more important to you than just a check, they like living there and they'll renew the lease and then everybody makes money.
And that's your biggest turnover. That's your biggest cost. Turnover, right?
Turnover will kill you. Like the owner that had the tenant since 2017 brought in $111,000, probably paid for the whole house.
Yeah.
Turnover is bad. Tenants feeling valued, feeling heard. I heard a really good phrase the other day. Someone told me, being heard is so close to being loved that few people can tell the difference. And that's very true, right?
See, first to understand, then to be understood.
One of our core values. We listen to understand, not to respond.
Yeah. Love it.
Yep.
Final questions, and we're gonna we'll open it up for Q&A. So have your questions ready. If you could give advice.
Wait, I'm looking at these questions, and you didn't tell me these were coming, or I'd have been ready. But go ahead.
All right.
Fine.
Here's your gotchas. If you could, I was gonna do a political joke. If you could give advice to your 20-year-old self, what would it be?
Focus. My personality, I'm the serial entrepreneur, and I'll see a shiny object every 14 minutes. I've got a list of like 60 companies I want to start on my phone.
Anybody else like that? Yeah.
It's a curse, but it's interesting that our personality type's like 1% of the population. We're responsible for all innovation in the world. Not me, but our type, right? You, me, and you. Focus, and then I would say, if you can at all help it, don't sell houses. I can't tell you how many houses I've sold that are worth 3 and 4. I probably sold 1,000 houses in my life that are worth triple what I sold them for today. Triple. At least triple. Some 5, 6 times. And obviously you have to eat when you're flipping houses, right? And hard money just eats cash. Rehabbing eats cash. But if I could have kept more rentals and had 1,000 or 2,000 rentals today, I wouldn't be sitting around with this Bounds guy.
I've said the same thing. I've done some courses and webinars on millionaire real estate investors. Very easy. It really only takes 4 or 5 houses. So most people can do that when you really understand the math. But I've said the same thing. Like Jamie and I, we flip around 200 houses. That sounds cool. I do get some like, oh wow, cool. I wish I could like erase that statement and go back and factually say, hey, I bought 30 and I still own all 30. Like the math doesn't lie.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said,
or I own 200 rentals instead of I flipped 200 houses.
Oh, 100%. I would have kept my job for a while, but I don't know. They cut my pay in half.
Well, I'll say that too. For people who are reasonably new in real estate, buy and hold rentals and don't quit your day job.
1 house a year.
It is a really challenging arena nowadays, buying and flipping houses. There are sophisticated people doing this very well with technology and auto dollars and AI, outbound calling. it is very difficult to find the deals that are worth flipping, but it's not hard to find a good rental that'll cash flow. And you can keep your day job, keep that revenue, because when you quit that and you start flipping houses, you have to flip houses to eat.
Yeah.
And you're throwing away all these great houses that you could keep.
Yep. What book or books have greatly influenced your life?
Developing the Leader Within was great. How to Win Friends and Influence People was great. If anybody a salesperson, pick up the phone and sell. Go read that right this second. Pick up the phone and sell by Alex Goldfein. Just do that.
In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Behaviors, I've focused on what I put in my body and taking care of my body. Had a heart attack last June.
Wow.
I'm a heart patient.
I know that.
Yeah, look at there. So I really started refocusing on health, right? And how bad our food supply is and how you can eat real food by choice, right? And then I started thinking about, what do I want? What's my vision for my life versus what do I got to do this week? It's like, well, why am I doing all this? So I have that now, that long-term goal, so to speak, and that island my wife and I have decided on. And now I'm even more focused because I know what I'm doing it for.
Love it. We'll throw one other question in here. How are the Aggies going to do this weekend? So
we already talked about the Aggies earlier, and I said, and I'll say again, never seen a program do less than more than the Aggies. Do less with more. They have talent coming out of their ears, and they seem to just underperform year after year. So frustrating, but we shall see.
I saw a meme.
Hey, sounds like the Cowboys, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I know.
I saw a meme.
Bring back Jerry.
When the Queen died, that she did not live long enough to see the Aggies win a championship. Whew. All right. How can people reach out to you?
Rich at renterswarehouse.com is my email. rwhouston.com is our little website there if you want to check out our services. But you can reach out to me at rich at renterswarehouse.com, and I'll do this. Somebody's got some deals they're looking at or something, I'll give anybody an hour. If you want an hour of my time, and I'm not special or nothing, but I've been doing this a long time. I like talking real estate. I like talking business. If you're interested in talking business, we can talk business too. I work with EOS Worldwide. Everybody know the book Traction? I work with EOS Worldwide to implement EOS in people's business. I'll talk business with you for free. I'll talk real estate for free. I just like talking about it. And Rich at renterswarehouse.com.
All right, we're going to open up for some Q&A. What we got? So just raise your hand, and you're going to have to meet somewhere in the kind of the center area. All right. What you got, Terry?
Oh, no, not Terry.
All right.
There's no telling.
All right. You're going to have to step forward.
No Cowboys questions.
All right. So, okay, yes, I'm Terry Azus. So we've been around for a long time. And back in the day, we were taught certain things about how to run our business. For example, you should only work maybe 10% in your business and have other people doing so many things. You should be flipping houses. You should raise up to 100 rentals or something like that. And people have suffered because of those words of wisdom. And so I wanted to maybe, I don't know how exactly to phrase this question, but I wanted to know, what do you think you were told back 10 years ago that really bit you in the butt?
I don't know if I can think of something I was told because I already knew everything. No, that's my daughter. Sorry. I got mixed up. I think what bit me, it wasn't what somebody told me, but something I did was I put all my eggs in one basket when I was loaning hard money. I had one senior debt. I had a $100 million facility and one person giving me that money. And when 2008 happened, they went because they were scared. And my business had to close. I mean, I damn near went broke. That was the worst. I mean, you want to talk about a horror story? That's worse than any of these tenant stories. I was selling cars, put my house up for sale. I will say, my wife wasn't here for the money. She was here for me because she stayed. So I was very happy about that. But I darn near went broke.
I think my answer to that question is somewhat similar because I would phrase it back to when you're starting out with real estate, and as you progress in your journey, really taking that extra time quarterly, annually to refocus and get that big picture on what do you really want? Like, why are you even doing this? Because our goal starting off was build wealth, build passive income. And we had micro goals, kids in private school, but build wealth, build passive income. I always also wanted to be a full-time entrepreneur. So we made, in like 60 days, we made $250,000 off 2 properties. Profit.
You're the smartest guy in the world.
But
But wait.
So I quit my job because they cut my paycheck in half. I'm like, I don't need that anymore. Like, so cool. We got this thing. It's going. Blah blah blah. So then we start flipping because $100 a month doesn't really put foot on the table. So we start flipping. Now we go flip 200 houses and then go back to the thing I said before. It'd been a lot better if we just bought 30 and kept them. The 2 properties that we made over $100,000 each on, those are rentals. And when we, years later, and we looked at this giant machine that we had built, and we're spending $30,000 a month on marketing, doing 3-5 flips a month, and it's fun at times, it sucked at other times, but I realized like, this is a very, very, very busy job that I built for myself.
But you're not building a company, you're building a job.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Because I know, and I don't want to scare anyone from like trying to scale flipping. I'm just saying, this is my personal experience. One, that did not align with the reasons why I got into investing. Doesn't mean flipping's bad. Doesn't mean wholesaling's bad. Like in hindsight, if I were to do it again to align with our goals, I would have flipped 1, held 1, flipped 1, held 1, or flipped 2, held 1. I would have kept that as opposed to, hey, let's try to flip 10 a month now or 15 a month.
Right.
Because I know a lot of people in this business, and all but a very, very small few. Now, I'm thinking I have to get out of Houston to say this. Nationally, almost every single one of them tried to scale a flipping business, either went out of business.
Very challenging.
Or scaled back down to something small and manageable. It's just challenging. There's a lot of wheels moving, a lot of delays in payment. So if you do it well, that's fine. But for us, like we're saying, like we just got caught up in the whole let's do more, let's do more, let's do more. When really, if we would have just kept doing what we're doing and kept holding some, it would have been a lot better. But that's what we're doing now.
It really resonated with me what you said about your vision, right? It didn't align with your vision. And you talk about, every quarter getting in a room and saying, all right, is what we did the last quarter moving us towards our vision or not?
And that comes from EOS.
And sometimes you're not in line with your vision. So you got to recalibrate, right?
Yeah.
It's the metaphor is you're cutting a road through the jungle. Well, about every once in a while, somebody's got to climb a tree and see if you're going the right direction.
Yeah.
Right.
Or, I mean, you're a naval aviator. It's the same thing. Like when you've got a trajectory that you're going and there's winds and all kinds of other things. Like
for sure.
Every once in a while, you got to make little bitty small adjustments, and it's not a straight path. Like there will be adjustments.
But 90 days is a good amount of time to do that.
Yep.
Because that's the way our minds work. 90 days is the right amount of time.
Just a question on, we talked about injuries, dog bite, we talked about that. So when you're looking at insurance for landlord policy, what do you look for? How do you ensure you get the right coverage to make sure you're protected for those kind of things if you do end up in a lawsuit?
So premises liability is what you want. And so that's what they call loosely slip, trip, and fall insurance. But it covers any injury that someone has that is invited on the property or comes on the property for a reasonable use. right? Something happens, the sidewalk is uneven and they fall, so it must be your fault, right? Or, tenant invites a friend over that has a dog, it bites somebody. Well, the dog was legally there because they invited them over, so it's got to be your fault, right? It's not really, but but it'll cover any reasonable thing like that. That's premises liability.
Definitely talk with your insurance broker or insurance provider. So we use NREIG. Their link is on our website, bestagents.com. I'm definitely not an expert.
Yeah, I'm not an insurance guy, but
Well, starting out, insurance was a check the box thing. I knew you had to have it. I mean, because the lender said you had to have it. There's a reason why the lender wants you to have it. They're protecting their butt. But really, there is a lot of things you need to make sure that are right with the policy, depending on what you're doing. Now, I didn't realize that, hey, when you flip in a house, yeah, you need a builder's risk policy. But when you're done flipping it, you need to switch that to a vacant policy. Like you have X amount of days before you may lose some coverage.
I got a good one. I got a good insurance tip.
Make sure, so I guess if I know a term, I don't really know the actual insurance term, but all perils, basically, from my understanding, it means they cover everything except for this block of things that they're excluding. And most of those things could also be included. You're just getting riders and you're paying extras for it. So anyway, talk with the insurance provider, make sure you have the right policy for the right property and what you're doing with it, and check in with them, and then figure out all the things that they don't cover so you can make sure that if you want them covered, it gets covered. Go ahead.
Yeah, all perils. You're right about that. So this happened to us, and this is a gotcha that we never saw coming. House is occupied for several years, and we have a landlord policy, right? Texas dwelling policy, where it covers a tenant occupied house. And everybody's familiar that there's a vacancy clause on those. Do y'all know what that means? If it's vacant for more than X number of days, it's not valid anymore. 60 or 90. Some are 60, most are 60, somebody said. So we had a house that went vacant because it had a fire. No, I'm sorry. It went vacant and then had a fire greater than 60 days after they moved out, and we didn't switch it to a vacant dwelling policy. So what does that mean to you? We have a problem.
But there is a big difference between vacancy and unoccupied.
True.
Is as long as you keep the utilities on, it's not vacant. Vacant buildings are generally, there's no utilities, you're boarded up, they're truly a vacant building.
Well, their interpretation was that your tenant moved out greater than 60 days ago, we're not paying.
Again, that's not what the policy says, and that's what I deal with all the time. So
That's an interesting thing to know.
The biggest thing about insurance policies, a lot of people go out and buy the cheapest policy they can buy. They're not buying coverage nowadays. And that's a major mistake. When you look at the policy, you really need to you need to read the policy. And if you don't know how to read the policy, I don't want to say you don't know how to read it. Everybody knows how to read, hopefully. Interpreting the policy and the language in that policy and all we owe you for this and we don't owe you for that. They're master craftsmen at putting that kind of language in the policy. So after you read a couple pages, you're confused as hell if you hadn't read policies for the last 20 years like I do. Now, the biggest thing is the policies are generally all the same. They all have the same got you language in them. It's the forms and endorsements that'll bite you on the butt. If you have a rental property and they have a safeguard endorsement in there that says you have to have smoke detectors, alarm systems, and things like that, and they're not maintained, and you don't have a log where you had somebody go out and check that smoke detector on that rental property every 30 days or 90 days or whatever that policy is, mandating that you do, and you do have a fire and there's a tenant in there, so you don't have that issue. But then they come out and they're not going to pay the claim for that reason. I had a client last year that he owns a lot of hospitality properties, a hotel owner, and he switched his agent on his house to his agent on his commercial properties. That agent wrote a policy that said he had a sprinkler system in his house. How many people have sprinkler systems in their house that don't live in an apartment or a condo?
Not very many.
Zero. I've never seen one. So they come back and they deny this claim. It didn't have a huge claim. It was about it was about $150,000. So it wasn't the end of the world for him. But we were able to get that claim paid because, national average is, unless you just live in an area where there's, wildfires, maybe California or somewhere like that, people are not going to have a sprinkler system in their house. So the number one thing about insurance claim or insurance is buyer beware. Know what you're buying. If you get an agent you actually trust and actually read. I had a potential client called me yesterday. The agent put down on the application that the roof was 5 years old. When you go look at it on Google Earth, everybody, Ray Charles can see it's not 5 years old. Okay. And their insurance company now is saying, well, that's what you put on the application. We're denying your claim. Read the application. Make sure that don't just go signing it blindly like your agent's got your back covered. They're there to make a commission. And not all agents are that way, but there's a lot of them out there that just want to sell you a policy and then you're holding the bag. So be careful.
Thank you for the input. The end of that story that we had was the insurance company denied the claim. And then we found out from a little birdie that our lender could request their loan payoff because there's no way they could have been notified that this happened, and they have to pay the loan balance off as long as it's below the insurance amount. So our lender was paid off, which was about the amount we would have got anyway on the claim, even though we didn't comply, in their words, with the policy. They had to pay the lender because after 60 days, it's not covered. But since the insurance company didn't know it was vacant for over 60 days, there's no way they could have sent a notice to our lender. So our lender sits there unprotected, and then that law is there to protect lenders. So our lender was able to get paid off, which in effect we got paid and paid the lender.
I think the biggest thing with there is, especially if you're flipping houses, we're in a market where you're probably not getting 15 offers on the first week these days. So if it takes longer than 60 days, you might want to talk to your insurance agent about switching that over to a vacant policy. Terry mentioned, this is pretty important with insurance since we're on it. And I got this advice from Eddie years ago.
You got to ignore that then.
Yeah, most of it I do, but this one I think was pretty helpful. And it's so you have your escrow account. They're paying. They're sending out the checks for taxes and insurance, and it's good because they're not hopefully going to squander your money. Those checks are going to get sent out, but you still have to make sure that those checks actually get cashed, because in the event that your mortgage company sends out that check, insurance doesn't get it, policy lapses. That could put you in a situation or tax. Same thing with your tax payment. So I do see the escrow statement. Hey, we sent the check. The lender's saying that, but I do verify. I put in my calendar, check, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, just to make sure that it did get paid, especially in taxes. And there have been cases where it did not get cashed, like the actual. This is regarding taxes. It didn't get cashed. Or credited to our account. They didn't get their money. The local tax office, I got sent late payment fees and all this other stuff. I sent that over to the insurance or the mortgage company and told them, hey, you got to fix this.
Make this right.
They did. They actually did.